Hi everyone. I was just thinking of a lot of different things and what direction I want to move forward with this channel. It's always a question you ask yourself. Like, YouTube's getting pretty strict with what you can say and what you cannot say. The world is getting worse and worse and worse. Free speech is under attack, and that's very obvious. Even though it's put into a category that isn't really correct. It's manipulative. Some people say free speech isn't under attack. Some people say it's definitely under attack, and some people are in between. Because it's like you have the left, you have the right, you have very little people in between, it seems like. And there is no left, there is no right. There's only individual choice, individual freedoms, individuals, period. There is only individuals. There is no left and right. It's an illusion. I know there's people like to put things into categories. I can't stand that, because when you put things and people into categories, then you have categories, and you have to fall within that category. And if you're a type of person that doesn't fall in the category, then you're ridiculed. You're not treated with respect by everyone. Like, there's going to be one side or the other that has a problem with it. And there's so many times we're actually given, when we're actually not given a choice. It's like you have to be left or right. What the hell does that even mean? What is left or right? It's like you have certain belief systems, and that makes you who you are. So they could have right, and they could have left, and then a bunch of stuff in between. So you're not either one or the other. So what do you do then? You have to pick a side? This is the problem. It's a side thing. We have to pick a side. We have to pick a race. We have to pick a gender. Everybody's out is pitted against each other. Let me see the problem with that. Why is people being pitted against each other? Why isn't equality something that people want? Don't you think equality is the best way to go? That people should be treated equally? All over the world? Doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter religion, doesn't matter anything. It's just everybody's treated equally. I'm not talking about everybody has the same amount of money in a bank account. I'm not talking anything like that. I'm talking about everybody has the same freedoms, has the same ability to be able to better their lives. I'm not a big fan of the way the world does their economy, because I see so many issues with it. So many ways to manipulate it, so many ways to control people and control things. We need a world, or leaders of the world, that are out for the people, not out for lining their pockets. It is a complicated thing if we make it that way. And this is a huge topic that could go on for hours and hours on end. Because there is solutions, but nobody's wanting to hear the solutions. Because the solutions mean that it's going to affect you, and it's going to affect your life. We all say we want equality, we want change, we want respect, we want love. But there's a lot of people that don't want any of that. And they're the ones that are controlling almost everything. So why not just pit everybody against each other so nothing ever changes? There's a reason why we're stuck in a loop of never-ending change. Because there's a group of people that get into power, that stay in the power, that keep power, that want power no matter what. So they either use religion, they use all kinds of things in order to manipulate the population. into doing what it is that they want to do. And it works every fucking time. Every time it works, because we're still here doing the same thing many years later. And I think for me, I don't want to go into a whole shitload of detail about how to fix things, because how to fix things, you need leaders that are willing to do the changes and the hard decisions. Because I could spew off 1,000 solutions, and there's no point, because it has to be somebody that is putting those solutions into play, and people have to follow them. Otherwise, you continue down the same path over and over and over and over again, which we've been doing for thousands of years. Nothing's changing. People say they want change. People say they want the truth, but they can't and don't want the truth. And that's why we're still going in this circle over and over again. That's why people want to put people into categories, because if we're not in categories, guys, there is no race. There is no religion. If we're all equal, we're all equal. It's that fucking easy. But how do you do a monetary system? That's complicated. I agree. But it's possible. But it means that people that are making their billionaires might not be billionaires. There wouldn't be poor people anymore. But people that don't want to sit in their homes for hours and hours and hours and then doing absolutely nothing, don't want to work, that's always going to be a problem. So what's that solution? See, it is complicated. For people that want to go out and better themselves, they spend their whole life grinding to be better at something, so they become a master at it. Don't they deserve to be a better social class, you could say? That's the problem, right? Social classes, isn't it? You have the poor people, you have the middle class, upper middle class, then you have the rich and ridiculously rich and ridiculously, unbelievably, pathetically rich. How do you do and fix all that? How do you make a society? Because people that work really hard should be rewarded for that, should they not? People that don't want to do anything, well, they shouldn't starve to death, but at the same time, they should be encouraged to better their lives. Right now, as a middle-class person, you're paying so much tax for people that don't want to do anything at all. It doesn't seem fair, does it? And the people that are ridiculously rich don't pay any taxes at all. It's really screwed up. And there's always saying, well, people that were really, really rich holds all the jobs, blah, 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 blah. But when you make a good wage and you're at a good job and you can't afford to keep, like have kids and have one person stay at home, it doesn't matter if it's male or female. One person stay at home, look after the kids, and you can't afford a house. And when you can't afford a house with 2 incomes, there's something wrong, isn't there? There's something very, very, very wrong. Like in Canada, the cost of living is atrocious. We get taxed through the roof. Houses are unaffordable. Unless you're making $150,000 a year or more. And if you live in Vancouver or Toronto, you're going to be more like $300,000 for Christ's sake. So what is the solution? And it is like, it's not just for me to, or even the Spiro, because they could say whatever they want. The solutions are in the people that can make the change. So we have to help the people that are in the positions of power, if you want to call it that, in government, in big businesses, to be able to see and be able to make these changes. Because if we don't do that, what's the outcome? A revolution that destroys everything? Destroys the economy, destroys the people, destroys the infrastructure, and then we go into dark ages again? Is that the solution? Because that's the way we're headed. But does any of us really want that, though? Do we want to be at a war with Russia? No. Majority of people don't want that. Majority of people want to grow, be happy, have a family, in any way and form that is. But you don't want to kill each other. We don't want that. So why is it that we keep going back to that? Because we are not holding the people that can make the decisions. We're not putting the right people in. And to be honest with you, how do we even do that when we have a government that's so friggin' corrupt? I've never been in a situation where I'm so disappointed in my government. It's actually very hard to really look at life and see, my God, what has happened to the world? But this isn't the worst time in history. People say it is, but it's not. There's all kinds of times in history where things completely fell apart. But why do people want to keep tearing the world down? This is what I want to know. I want to do a journey into why, as a human race, when we build ourselves up to a point where things are going pretty good, in a lot of ways, a few years ago, things were going pretty damn good. There was issues. Don't get me wrong. There's still, but these issues have become very glaringly loud. So I want to look into why the human race continues to want to tear itself apart every time we build it up. You could say that it's only certain individuals, but why do we allow it to continue to happen? Because as a collective, look at the zombie apocalypse. Realistically, that's a thing. There's a lot of people out there that want a zombie apocalypse. I'm not one of them. But there's people out there that do. Why? Because it's a world that they feel like they could be free in. It's pretty bad when you want to tear things down to the point. And that's the only way that you feel like you can actually be free. So why is it that the human race continues to do this? So I want to see what the spirits have to say about why the human race, and collectively, there's a lot of people in the human race that feel this way. Okay, they're wanting me to be more specific in the question. So as a collective, why is the human race staying in this cycle of destruction and rebuilding? Because we're moving to a point where we're going to destroy things and we have to rebuild it again. But every time that happens, there's a very good possibility it could be worse, not better, by the time we're done. And that's going to be an interesting thing to happen. I'm just trying to get that thing blocked. There it goes. The camera was in delay. So I'm just thinking about the question, why does the human race continue to go down a path of destruction? In a way, that's what it is, because all throughout history, you have all these societies that got really big, got corrupt, and fell apart. So why is it that we, as a human race, the majority of people, allow that to happen? Because we could have changed things years ago. When things started to go down the tubes, we could have actually did a lot more to prevent that from happening. But again, we choose it. We choose complacency. And we choose complacency in the times of urgency. We're stuck with the outcome of what is going to happen. So I just want to look into this energy. Why does the human race keep doing this to each other? Because you could look all throughout history, if we even know what history is anymore. Because what is true and what isn't, like when it comes to history. No, there's so many people out there that can't be can't possibly be wrong, so whatever they say is 100% right for eternity. Even though they're proven wrong, they still don't want to admit it. See the problem? Even when people hear the truth, they don't want to actually admit that the truth exists. They would rather live in a lie than hear the truth. And again, that's part of the problem, isn't it? Maybe that's the first part of the journey. Because this is what keeps coming up, is that people would rather live in a lie than hear the truth. But why is that? And so I'm going to look into this energy here. The first thing I see is like Old Faithful, Yellowstone National Park. The geyser that keeps, is quiet and then always ends up blowing up. Because it's quiet. If it was constantly going, it would be a constant flow. But when it goes quiet, it builds up pressure and blows. It's kind of like the human race. We allow things to get so bad that we build up pressure that it just explodes and it tears everything apart around us. Old Faithful, though, doesn't tear itself apart. So they're saying, even though Old Faithful is, it explodes controllably. The problem with the human race is that it holds things in so long that it blows up uncontrollably, which then tears everything apart. So it's always better to let off steam instead of blowing yourself to smithereens. And Old Faithful is actually a really good way of looking at it, because if that pressure isn't released, it's going to explode into a much bigger explosion, is it not? And usually will end up destroying it completely. Look at a volcano. You can have a controlled release in a volcano or a pyroclastic volcano. Controlled release will actually slowly build up over time and become a stable volcano. Well, if you have a volcano that doesn't let off steam and builds up that pressure, it will literally blow itself to smithereens. And they're comparing this to the human race. We need to know how to let steam out on a regular basis. We need to know how to let the pressure go. We can't build up pressure. In other words, they're saying we cannot say anything when we're meant to say something. Because saying something, and there's a lot of things popping in my head, and many different examples of how people can let stuff go. So if you're sitting in a room and somebody says something you disagree with and you say nothing at all, it builds up pressure. Again, when you're in another area, another thing, that same topic comes up and you say nothing. But you could say something and it could make a difference, but saying nothing just makes it worse. So next time, that same scenario is way worse than it was before. So saying nothing at all makes it even worse, because now it's law. It's written in stone. You can't change it as easily now. So now, instead of actually just simply saying something before that could have stopped it from becoming law, now it is law, and the only way to change that is to like, it's not easy to change. So if you look at, they're showing me that if you look at the United States, if the United States doesn't deal with the problems that are happening in it, it will rip itself apart. And then the United States is going to be a fraction of what it was before. Because when you blow up and you tear everything apart, it's not the same as it was before it was torn apart. And then somebody else can come in and pick up the pieces. And then again, you could fight a war, blah, 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 and it's an endless cycle. if you have a strong society, you're more liable to stay strong. But when you have a strong society that tears itself apart, somebody else can come in and take it over much easier. And this has been done all throughout history. It's like, that's why being pitted against each other is the worst thing that you could do. To be left or right is the worst thing that you can that can be done. For instance, black or white or Hispanic, Asian, it doesn't matter. If we start segregating ourselves and be pitted against each other, we're going to tear each other apart, and then somebody's going to come in and just easily take over. Because one of the things that makes us strong is when we stay together. When we start separating ourselves, we become weaker. And that's the same thing about society, about family. It's about gender. It doesn't matter. If we start segregating ourselves and putting one specific thing over the other, I'm more important than you, you're more important than me. Instead of having equality, we have separate groups that want to be at the top. It starts to create hatred. And then it explodes into this massive revolution that will tear everything apart. And then somebody's going to come in and clean up the pieces, because there's no way that we can stand up to them at that point. But now that never happened, we would stay strong and firm in our beliefs. And it's so much harder for somebody to come in and take it over. So all through history, this has happened. The smart people will put seeds, plant seeds, and watch a society crumble. And then we're going to take over. The people that aren't smart are going in there, guns a-blazing, into a very strong society. Both sides get decimated. And then the pieces are very difficult to clean up. But it's so much easier to decimate a society from within and then just walk through. They're saying it's so easy because if you have a country that crumbles and falls apart, you can just walk in and say, hey guys, I'm here to clean it up. Nobody's going to fight back and everybody's going to want. Even if you didn't want it, you've already destroyed yourselves. So it's easy to just walk in. You could say that China could be planting seeds in the United States, just hypothetically. They get a civil war, it crumbles, then they just can come in and take over. Easily, no problem. Russia could just walk over and take over. But if you plant seeds in society that tear it apart, and you allow that to happen, you just basically destroyed a country. So when is it that we are able to see through the cracks? Not just a few, but the mass population see through the cracks of deception and hate. Until we're able to see that, we're always going to be going through this cycle. This cycle of manipulation, control, conquer. It goes in a circle. A country gets powerful, falls apart from within, then it's taken over again by someone else. Or a country gets strong, crumbles from within, nobody takes over, but the pieces are so ripped apart, it takes a very, 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 very long time before it's built back up again. And sometimes it's for the better, and sometimes it could be much, much worse. And they're showing me an example that Germany, if Germany did things differently, planted the seeds, waited, have the people fight against each other, then they were able to just walk across Europe and in through Asia, into everywhere, and take over the whole world. It would have been a lot easier if there was patience involved, if there was scheming involved. And how do we know that's not even happening now? See, we gotta be very careful when we think we're better than someone else. I always say the most dangerous people are the ones they think that they're better than other people. Because they don't have empathy. They don't care what happens to people then. They only care about themselves. When you have people like that are in charge, they're not going to care about anything except what they can get or what they can receive. When you have people like that in power, they'll do whatever they can, whatever they want to better their own lives, and they don't care how many people it destroys. As long as they come out on top. The problem is if you have other people that are sitting in wait, and then feeding these people to think that they're going to have this seat of power, and when their country no longer can defend itself, they can just take that person, put a bullet in their head, and just say, you know what, you did your job, you're an idiot, we don't want to have anything to do with you. And now they just walk in, they take over everything, and then things go back. And this is the cycle of life. The cycle of manipulation, greed, destruction, conquer, over and over and over and over again. When a society thinks it's better than another society, or a part of society, or when people want to be better, when they feel that they're better, that they deserve to be at the top, when they don't care how it affects other people, when you stop caring about other people, you're never going to grow as a society. Because society should be working together to better everyone in that society. And obviously there needs to be some scale here. Because there's always going to be leaders. There's always going to be people that don't want to be leaders. But they're all equal in that society. And until we're able to see and grow in that way. See, the people that lead, that only care about themselves and think they're better than the people, like a king who only cares about himself, the kingdom's going to suffer, because the kingdom, the people in the actual closest to the king are going to be wealthy, but all the people are going to be poor, because he's going to take everything he can from those people until there's nothing left. A revolution happens, the king is taken, hung, and all the people that are around him are hung or run away. Then there could be peace for a while. But the stability of that kingdom no longer is there. Now you have another person waiting in the wind saying, oh, here's an opportunity. They walk in, and now you have a much worse situation than you did before. Or it could be better. You could have a society that comes in to better everyone. Maybe the society pulls together and there's years of peace because of it. But the ultimate problem is that people got to stop being selfish, greedy, out for themselves. This is very, very, very loud. Because that is the problem, that's why we keep continuing down this path, because we put these people in places of power. We do. We allow it. And then they become more and more ingrained in society to the point we can't just simply get rid of them anymore. We have to have this massive revolution which destroys everything in its wake, in its path, because they're so ingrained, there's no way of changing it anymore. When people don't want to hear the truth, that's a problem. When people don't want to have respect for each other, there is a problem. When you think you're better than someone else, there's a problem. When you have extremists running things, that's a problem, because extremists only think of extreme situations, extreme results. It's my way or the highway. They don't see any side of anything. They only see their own side. And extremists are a very small portion of the population. They say the only time that we're going to have true peace is when we look at our neighbor and we help a neighbor off the ground if they fall. To bring them into our home and feed them if they're hungry. To work hard to develop ideas that benefit everyone, like free energy, for instance. Not paid energy, free energy. If we created a society where the basic things in life that is the most important are free, like free internet, free cell phone, free transportation, not just the crappy transportation that we have, but real transportation that is like everywhere, that runs 24 hours a day, constantly, all the time, and nobody has to worry about paying for that. So when you start eliminating the things, and say that you have a monetary system, but it's a very basic monetary system. If you want above and beyond that, you work for it. You strive better. You create a better job. It creates a society that better, the more you benefit yourself. But that's the problem when you run into that. They're saying there's a limit to that. Because when you start having people living in these massive mansions and then people living basic lives, there's a disconnect. So why not build a mansion for everyone? There's a long pause in that. Because not everybody wants to live in a mansion. And first of all, that's a lot of space that is not being used. I think what they're saying is that society can live a very happy life. If you didn't have to pay for food, you didn't have to pay for transportation, you didn't have to pay for a place to live, for energy to stay warm, clean drinking water, clothing. But then they say, well, that's communism. Well, that's not communism. You could say that's socialism, but the problem with these concepts is that there's always somebody on top that wants to control everything, to manipulate things to the point where they're coming out on top. That's what has to change. The person that wants that can't be in power, because when they think they're better than other people, there's no balance. It's such a difficult thing to put into words because it is complex. We should be building things to last. We should be building technology that lasts. We don't make a shirt that falls apart in a year because it's easier, it's cheaper. We don't do that. It's a waste of energy. It's a waste of resources. We need to build things that last for as long as possible, that are beautiful, that are unique, and have different varieties for people, what people want. We should be working together as a society, building these beautiful things. We need to have the people that are in power not to be in power. The people that want the power are the worst ones to be in power. We need people that care about other people, but also people willing to stand up for people that are being extreme. Because extremism is part of the issue. That's the gut. That's the rot in society. Because it's extreme, it means you're not willing to bend. Bend is not the right word. You're not willing to hear all the sides of the of the story. We all just want to be happy. It's one of those things that could go on for a very, very, very long time. And I don't want to make this video for 1,000 years because it's repetitive. It's the same story over and over again. What is wrong with society? It's the greed, it's manipulation, it's the control over other people. Until we learn to grow and walk away from that, we're going to be stuck in this endless cycle. What's wrong with creating an energy that's free? Why do we charge people that? The world is natural resources. If we can't get it, we can start going into space and getting it. And again, money is all an illusion, because ultimately the whole world has everything it needs to have everybody eat, everybody to live, everybody to survive. But we have to be respectful to nature, to ourselves, to each other. And the people that are not, what do you do with them? That's an issue, isn't it? What do you do with people that are unwilling to be like that? What happens if I'm the one that is the one that wants a world of peace, but I'm the one that shouldn't be, I'm the bad one, so to speak? Because I believe in peace and equality and respect and dignity and family and growth and people working together. What happens if I'm the minority and the rest of the world wants to be in a world of chaos? Something to think about, isn't it? Because that's what it feels like sometimes, doesn't it? Because the solutions are easy. But as you try to put those solutions into play, people aren't going to like it, because it's going to disrupt their lives temporarily. I think the solutions are ridiculously simple. If you put the right people in power that are willing to make the right decisions. Again, right. What is right, though? My right is different than your right. It's a compromise to create a society that cares about each other. But how do you stop the thousands of years of hatred? How? You have to forgive one another. But then what's the truth? Like, history is manipulated. We don't even know the truth about history, because one society over another replaces that history with their own history, with their own ideas. And all the other stuff is pushed down into oblivion. And do we even really truly know what the truth is? Go within yourself, find the truth, but then that's problematic, because now everybody has their own unique truth. Because how you interpret information is different than how somebody else interprets it. Ultimately, you understand what I'm saying. But do I want to come back to a world that wants to continue to live in chaos? Or do I want to live in a world that is full of love and understanding and respect and da-da-da-da-da? But maybe we come here into this chaotic world to learn, to grow, to understand. Maybe that's why it never changes. Thank you very much, everyone. There's some things to think about, and if you wish to do a journey with me, you can visit my website at yukonAmonRastawakening.com, or you can visit my touring page at Yukon Skies, or you can go to Joseph Braley Auroras, or all.coms. It's up to you. Thank you very much for your time. Have a wonderful day. Always be good to each other. Help the old lady across the street. Help your neighbor. Talk to your neighbor. In person, not over the phone. Talk to people. Talk. Like, really, like, you see somebody in the street and it looks like they want to have a conversation. Have that conversation. You'll learn something from it. Good conversation, you always will learn something good from it. Take care.